Welcome back to another lesson on text processing. We're going to look at lesson 5.2 on exceptions. Exceptions is a computerese way of saying error. One of the ways. These are ways. This is how you deal with errors in a script. If you know error is going to happen, but you don't want the script to stop dead in its tracks. So the objective of this lesson is that students will be capable of catching exceptions, aka errors, in their scripts. Think Python chapter 14 has a good section, a little section here, section 14.5 on catching exceptions or errors. So let's take a quick look what they have here. So they show an example here. Let's say if you try and open up a file connection to some error or to some file that doesn't exist, right? It'll throw some type of error, like a IO error or a file not found error, or something bad will happen. Or if you try and open up something you don't have permission to do, it'll say, no, permission error, you can't do that, permission denied. And what will happen is it'll stop the script dead in its tracks. It won't go past that point. It won't execute anything farther past the error. And so if you're writing something in some situation where you think that you'll get an error, but you don't really care, you just want to have it keep going, then you need to deal with that error somehow. And that's what we'll try here with the try except blocks. This is a keyword, try, except is another keyword. And so this is the example they give here. So it says try : indentation, and it tries to open up some file, some bad file, or some file that it's not there. And when it throws an error within the try block here, it'll jump down to the except block and run it. So it'll say something went wrong. So to give an example here, here's an example. So I'm going to use with open, and I'm going to ask it to open up some file that I know does not exist. I know there's no asdf.txt in the directory that it's in right now, which honestly, I don't even know what directory it's in, but I know it's not there. For curiosity, I'll just see where we are. Get current working directory. We need to print that out to the hard drive or to the console. So let me do that. So the point is that I know that there's no asdf.txt. And so when it tries to open this up, it's going to error out and it'll stop in its tracks and it won't get down to line 7. It won't print out all finished. Okay, I'm expecting it to not print out all finished. I'm expecting it to error out. So I'm going to run it, keyboard shortcut, enter. And yeah, we have a bunch of red all over the place. It says file not found error. No such file or directory, asdf.txt. So yeah, it errored out, and we don't see that it printed out all finished. There's no all finished down here at all. So it didn't get down to line 7 because there's an error right here. So where are we? Okay, there's the, it did print out this get current working directory. Apparently we're in, this is the directory that this chalkboard.py file is in. I didn't even know exactly where it was. Okay, so the way to deal with this is to say, okay, I want you to try this, and I need to indent that whole block. Those 3 lines I need to indent. In PyCharm, you can highlight them and then push tab on the keyboard to highlight all 3 as one big block. And I said, okay, try that. And if you have a problem, jump down to accept and do this. And we'll just print out something like can't do that. Okay. And then, so what I'm expecting it to do is I am expecting it to error out here. And when it hits the error, it'll jump down to accept and run this block. And when it's done running that, it should actually run all finished now. So let's try that. Keyboard shortcut, enter. There we go. So it printed out the directory pathway like I asked it to right there. Then it jumped in here and found an error. So it jumped down here and said, I can't do that, which is printed right there. And then it got to all finished down here. So once again, the purpose of using a try except block is to, if errors happen, allow the script to continue down here and do something. And you can even keep going past this point, right? We could do something else. We could say whatever, I don't know, hello world. Let me run that again. Keyboard shortcut, enter. Yeah, so it'll just keep going. It'll just keep going. We have hello world down there as well. So anyway, it's in some applications, you need to expect there to be an error, or at least deal with the possibility of an error. The way you do that is with try except blocks. So try this, and if that fails, then come down here and do this. Okay, this is conceptually somewhat similar to if-else statements, right? With if-else statements, we have, yeah, so like they say here, the syntax is similar to an if-else statement, and even somewhat the logic of it, maybe, not exactly. Conceptually similar to if-else in that with an if-else statement, you say, if this is true, then do this. If it's not true, then jump down to else and do this other thing, right? So it's kind of the same, somewhat similar in that you have two blocks of code. The first one will run if the conditional statement evaluates to true, but if that conditional statement evaluates to false, then the second block will run. Somewhat similar with the try except blocks in that it'll try this first. If this fails, it throws an error, then it'll jump down here and do this. So it's kind of like with the if else, you're asking permission before you do something, right? You're saying, okay, if this is true, then do that. So you're asking permission with the conditional statement. But with the try except block, you're just trying it. And if it fails, then you deal with the consequences. It's kind of like asking for forgiveness after trying something, in a sense, because you're trying this, and if you get an error, then you're asking for forgiveness by saying, okay, now do this, please. Okay. So let's practice this. It says, write a program that asks the user for a number between 1 and 1,000 and divides and prints out that number divided by -5, then by -4, then by -3 until you get up to 5. So you're going to have it print out 11 numbers, dividing you get a number from the user, right? And then you divide it by 11 numbers starting from -5 and going up to 5. And you should use the try except block so that when the number given by the user is divided by 0, an error message is thrown, but the script still continues. Okay. The range function should be useful here. So once you try that for a bit, if you get stuck, we'll talk about it here in a few minutes or more. I would spend 10 minutes if you need to try and figure this out, and then we'll be back together in a bit. All right, so pause the video. All right, welcome back. Let's take a look here on how you could do this little script. Okay, so here is line 8. It says, please give me a number, an integer between 100 and 1,000. And we save that as a string. So the output, the return value of input is a string. So we save it as num, but then we need to push that string to an actual integer so we can do division, right? Mathematical division. So we need to push it to an integer with the int function there and save it back to itself and to its same name. And then we do for I in range from -5 to index of 6. They're indexes. So what we do is we try to divide by I. I is holding -5 on the first iteration of this for loop, the first pass through it. And then it jumps up to -4, does the same for loop, right? And when it hits 0, it should give you an error. In fact, I'll make it give us an error just to start with, just to be very explicit on what this is meant to do. So I'm purposely going to make it error out, just so you can see what I'm trying to get across. Okay, I'm going to run the script, keyboard shortcut. Give me a number between 1 and I'll just give it 1, 2, 3, 123. Okay, so what does this do here? Okay, so yeah, through an error. Okay, so it said, okay, 123 divided by -5 equals negative 24.6. I don't know why it kind of threw this error message right between where it actually was working. It threw the error message for some reason right in the middle between this line and this line where that actually ran correctly. Right, so it was able to divide this number 123 by -4, -3, -2, -1. But then when it tried to divide 123 by 0, it threw a 0 division error, division by 0. You can't do that. Doesn't like that. Again, I don't know why it threw the error message right in the middle of the good output, but it did. So there it is. So we have an error, and so it didn't go above 0. It didn't go up to 1, 2, 3, or 4, etc. So the way to deal with that is you put this into a try block. You got to indent there and accept. Okay. So once again, we have a try colon indentation, and then we try to do this. So I'm doing a little bit of string concatenation as well as some division right in the middle here. I actually do the division right there. The number that was given by the user divided by I, which is holding one of these numbers right between -5 and +5. That 6 is the index, by the way. It should be just 5. I do that division, then I push it to string, and then I concatenate with other strings here. And I actually push to string the number given, push it back to string, and push to string or convert to string the I variable as well. So let me run this and see what happens. I'll give the same number, 1, 2, 3, 123. There you go. Okay, so it worked all the way through, and we got 123 divided by -5, -4, -3, 2, 1. And then when it hit 0, it got that error that we saw earlier. And so it jumped down to the accept block and ran this line 14. It says, you can't divide by 0, you silly goose. So that's what it actually printed. And it kept going. It didn't stop the script from running. So it kept going with the next iteration of the for loop. And that's why we get 1, 2, 3, etc. So that's how you do. That's how you use try except keywords to deal with errors as they come up in your script. I will point out that it's usually better to specify what type of error you expect to happen, so that you don't just forgive every error, because there may be some other error in your try block that may cause an error, but you may not know exactly what's happening if you don't say, I only want to accept, that is forgive, this one type of error. So it's probably better to specify exactly what error you expect might happen. So in this case, we expect 0 division error to come up. So if I rerun this, we'll have the exact same result. Let me just put 123 in again. Yeah, same result. But if I had, let me just, to be very explicit, if I had done something silly like within here, I tried to open up some file that doesn't exist. I'll just do that same thing we just did a couple minutes ago, right? As in file, for line in file, print line. Okay, so let me take off the 0 division thing and rerun the whole script. Okay, so what it's doing here is it does what we want it to do, but then it tries to do this file open thing to a file that doesn't exist. And so then it jumps down here and also prints this print statement that we said for it to print if it found an error. That's because it found an error. In this case, it's a file not found error, right? So you wouldn't know if you had a big long block of code and you weren't sure what the error came from. You have a bug, right? You have a problem on your hands you need to deal with. So a better way is to specify the exact type of error you think you might get, you expect to get. And so if I say I'm only going to accept a 0 division problem, let's see what it'll do here. I'll give it 123 again, stick with what I know. So yeah, it just errors out. It says, I don't know how to do this, and I don't have an accept to accept this file not found error. And anyway, so it gets into figuring out where bugs are and how to deal with them. So like I said, it's better practice and safer coding to avoid bugs by specifying the exact error you think you might get with a certain block of code or you expect to get. So for example, an index error, if you're indexing over a list and you want to look at the previous index, the previous thing, on the first one, there is no previous thing. So it'll throw an index error. So you can say, okay, if you get an index error, then just continue to the next one. Don't stop the whole script. Just continue to the next one, keep going. That's an example where you know you're going to get an error and you know what the error will be. It'll be an index error. And so you specify it right here. Otherwise, if you don't have that, then it'll just happily run, go down to the accept and keep running, and you won't know exactly what's going on. Okay, so if I look at the solution file, I can clean this up a bit here. Okay, if I stop, pause the video and look at that and make it work on your end, do so now. All right, so that is the end of lesson 5.2 on exceptions or errors. And you guys should be capable of handling, of catching exceptions or errors in your scripts and dealing with them with an except block, the try except block there. Okay. And that brings us to a conclusion of lesson 5.2. See you next time.